So when we're looking for results to cover up that, and that can be a really real problem. It's something that happens all the time in the men's development industry. And so we're talking about it now. Also, is that if you follow the links down below, that tells you about, number one, if you're watching this on YouTube, our Austin Men's Development, you should be on that. That's where this is streaming live. Number two, our AMD Plus, for a one-time payment. You can get on a very exclusive board and get tons of content, everything, literally everything you need to know about dating, sex, and relationships. So it's really the full package of it, and an awesome community, which is what we're known for. And then the second thing, or whatever it is on there, is the MD Excellence. MD Excellence is the best starting place to get on the calls and be a part of what we're doing. Like, we're about to start our Sunday call now in 6 minutes, and that is awesome stuff. So that goes on for 15 hours every Sunday. It's great. Sometimes it goes on for 30 hours, but this is just a rotation of just different guys coming in and networking throughout the world and talking about men's development. It never stops. It's amazing. And then, of course, there's TSL Online. I'm going to spare you with all the advertisement stuff. Check it out. Get involved with it. You know what you're getting into if you listen to the podcast. So what we want to talk about here is I got a series of messages this morning from one of my clients who was supposed to go out on a date last night, and then also dates today. Well, what happens a lot of the times is when we're in that dating life and things are moving so fast, people cancel. And this happens a lot, especially if you're looking at Tinder or looking at Bumble. You're going to get a lot of flakes. That is the nature of the game. In fact, there should be a whole separate video dedicated to that. When you're working the online game, whatever that is, you can definitely get flakes. So we look at how we minimize that. We look at how we work with that, how we reschedule, when is the right time to reschedule, and so on. But the thing is that you're going to get more flakiness when you're playing the online game rather than the in-person game. And the thing that is going to help you out possibly the most is your inner beliefs about this, because this is what happened. Is that the guy got instantly depressed. He had 2 dates potentially flake on him. One definitely did flake. The other one, it's like, well, I'm not feeling so good, so maybe Sunday is off. So here's the thing, and this is something that we talk about a lot on the Sunday call. When we hate ourselves, or when we have some doubting feelings, when we have a lot of negative beliefs, and it might not be full self-hate. This guy, actually probably doesn't hate himself, but he gets into really sad, really depressed, really in some ways disgusted when you get these flakes. It can be very, very painful and harmful and hurtful and all this sort of stuff. And man, that happens every time these things happen. So if you don't take care of your beliefs, and this is something that Terrence says all the time on our calls, if you don't take care of that, here's what happens. You getting positive results is the worst thing for you to get. It is the worst. It's like the kiss of death. So for instance, if I'm really insecure about women, and I'm really lonely, and I'm really sad about it, and it really upsets me, and every time I get rejected, or I want to go and talk to somebody, and they don't want to talk to me and it upsets me. If I don't take care of that, if I don't take care of that thing which is making me upset, then me getting the results of women or friends or whatever in my life is actually going to work against me, because I'm going to build up what I perceive as success. And I'm never going to take care of the inside. And so I have zero foundation to stand on. Now let's get into some literal examples of this, because it happens all the time. This happens all the time when it comes to men's development. Absolutely, man. It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. So we start out, all right. In TSL, we start out with the identity workbook, whereas we look at our identity. We look at who we are. And that is so fundamentally important. And in fact, we started a new group of TSL Online yesterday. And we were talking about that, talking about the purpose of identity. Well, it's therapeutic. That's cool. We look at ourselves, and that's really helpful. For years, people said that was the main benefit. But the original idea of that was that we could then learn to communicate with being ourselves. So we could literally take stuff from the identity workbook and use it to plug in to our different conversations using social dynamics. It's the purest form of social dynamics. It's amazing, right? But also we get the best results because we're never faking it. So we still get rejected, but our yeses aren't dependent upon somebody else. So again, let's go back to this real life example of what happens when we're searching just for the result without working on ourselves. This happens over and over again in pickup. We see a guy who gets good with women. He's allowed to date women. He's allowed to get sexual with women. He's allowed to get all the things which are supposed to be beneficial about women. But here's what his lifestyle becomes. It becomes going out all the time, dependent upon the approach, dependent upon social validation, dependent upon how much sex or the stories that he has. In fact, this was something that always came in line whenever you'd go to a conference, like a PUA conference or something. Guys just sat there and talked about three things: how much money they made, how many women they fucked, and how cool they were. Nobody had any other discussions outside of that. It was really sad whenever you had, and this is the coaches, but because those guys had built up lives that had none of the things that fueled them before. None of it was about who they really were. None of it was about, oh man, you're going to like me whether or not I have good results. None of it was, I'm willing to show you myself without having all this billboard, whatever stuff up first. And it's really interesting, right? Because how much do you want a fucking result? How much do you have to hate yourself to want to maintain and hold on to that sort of pain of not being you just so that you could get something that looked better to other people? You are now defining your life. You're defining, your sex drive is there. Your social drive is there. You're going to have those. Those are never going to go away. You can't just force yourself to not feel them. But you have now made your social drive and your sexual drive based on other people. So this born to be quality, your ambition, your purpose is now based on other people because you're unwilling to look at yourself. So check this out. It's always going to suck when you get rejected. It's always going to suck when people flake on you. It's always going to suck not being good enough. But if you sacrifice you being you just to feel or bypass the feeling of not being good enough, of hurting or of dealing with rejection, you are now cursing yourself with, man, hopefully you don't get a result. Hopefully you do go in a circle like most people, but hopefully you don't get a result. Hopefully you don't build a lifestyle on top of that. Hopefully you don't get a life where people know you, respect you, treat you, and actually interact with you based on that persona. Because if you do, at some point, you're just going to want to disappear. At some point, you won't be able to live up to it. At some point, you're going to have to cut and run or be driven out, or you'll be acknowledged as just, a fraud. And that's a terrible thing. So when you do dislike yourself, one of the best things that you can do, and actually in this situation, what this gentleman should do is he should write down and examine and start to feel everything that he feels, everything that he literally feels in the moment when he gets rejected. What does that mean? What does it mean when I get rejected? What is that saying? Is it saying that I'm not good enough, that my life is always going to be this way, that I might as well suffer, I might as well quit, I might as well say fuck it to everything in the world and blah, 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 blah? Let's look at that, because you're running from that now maintains your ability to never progress. Okay, so you not being able to function as yourself because you're afraid of going through the feelings of being rejected or not good enough, man, it is not worth it. It is just not worth it. You will never get results based off of that. You should feel it in your body. You should feel it in your emotions. You should feel it in your mind, and you should examine it. And then you should start to learn to calm down. So step one, I'd say, whenever you're dealing with that panic zone of like, oh my God, rejection, the world sucks, anxiety builds up. And man, I just went through a bout of this myself where it was just, everything was, getting screwed up. Our house got damaged in the whole hurricane thing. And there was a lot of panic. Well, the most important thing you can do when you get in that zone of high anxiety is to calm yourself down. Because if you keep building yourself up, man, you're only training your body, your mind, your nervous system, everything to depend on being crazy and dive into those thoughts, and they're not going to help you, right? And one of the things that we always think is like, oh, well, we can move into acceptance and be in peace, but how are we going to be helped? It doesn't solve the problem. You're right, it doesn't solve the problem. But the way you deal with problems and stress affects how you deal with everything else in your life. And the reason why I say that, because if you come in with this I hate myself mentality and you're working or you're working on something in your life, as soon as you get failure, it'll make you stop. It'll make you stop, man. All disorders come from that. You know, the roots of things like addiction, or the roots of things like, you know, negative beliefs, or of anxiety, of just having just over and over relentless depression, anxiety, those types of things are going to come from you not balancing your mind and taking responsibility for it with being yourself when you hit resistance. That is the sweetest moment in your life, when you hit a point of a wall or trauma or whatever it is, and how you can handle that. Because how you can handle that is going to write years and years of how you deal with stress and problems for the rest of your life. It's super, super helpful. In any case, I got to get on this call. The Sunday call has started. We're already 4 minutes into it, and I've been yammering along on this Austin Men's Development live broadcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join AMD Plus, join Men's Development Excellence. If you really want to step it up, TSL Online is the thing to do. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the thread. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe and be a part of our different playlists, because we really put a lot of work into it. And man, we want to interact. So subscribe and interact with us. That is key. All right. Talk to you guys later. Steve Mayeda signing off. Happy Sunday.